Janet Yellen just poured lighter fluid on every small bank in America. Michael Snyder reports, what in the world was she thinking? When a bailout was hastily arranged for uninsured depositors at Silicon Valley and Signature banks, the implication was that the same thing would be done for uninsured depositors at any other banks that failed. But now, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is telling us that is not actually what will happen. She just admitted that depositors at a failed bank will only be protected if officials determine that a failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences. This is really, really bizarre, in my opinion. So that means that depositors at big banks are likely to be protected, and that depositors at small banks are much less likely to be protected. In other words, Janet Yellen just poured lighter fluid on every small bank in America. Why would anyone keep more than $250,000 in a small bank at this point when there is very real risk of losing all of the uninsured money if the bank suddenly fails? Wealthy people are not stupid. They're going to move billions of dollars from the small banks to larger banks in the days ahead, and that's going to cause a tsunami of stress on all those small banks. Does Janet Yellen even understand what she just did? During congressional testimony on Friday, Senator James Lankford asked Yellen the sort of question that many of us have, hoping that someone would ask. Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma pressed Yellen about how widely the uninsured deposit backstops will apply across the banking system. Lankford asked, will the deposits in every community bank in Oklahoma, regardless of their size, be fully insured now? Will they get the same treatment that SVB just got or Signature Bank just got? Incredibly, Yellen came right out and admitted that uninsured deposits will only be protected under certain circumstances. Yellen acknowledged that they would not. Uninsured deposits, she said, would only be covered in the event that a failure to protect uninsured depositors would create systemic risk and significant economic and financial consequences. In other words, she's saying here, only the big ones are going to be protected. So if your bank fails in the days ahead, bureaucrats in Washington will get together and take a vote to determine if the uninsured depositors at your bank are important enough to protect or not. Needless to say, that means that wealthy individuals with very large balances at very small banks are at great risk. Senator Lankford clearly understood that Yellen and her fellow bureaucrats have now created a two-tier banking system. Quote, I'm concerned you're encouraging anyone who has a large deposit at a community bank to say, we're not going to make you whole, but if you go to one of our preferred banks, we will make you whole, end quote. If you have not seen the exchange between Lankford and Yellen yet, you can view it in the link here. Now, we are in so much trouble. Prior to Yellen's testimony, banks were already being forced to rely on the discount window at the fastest pace that we have ever seen. Data published by the Fed showed $152.85 billion in borrowing from the discount window, the traditionally liquid backstop for banks, in the week ending March 15, a record high, up from $4.58 billion the previous week. The prior all-time high was $111 billion, reached during the 2008 financial crisis. The data also showed $11.9 billion in borrowing from the Fed's new emergency backstop, known as the Bank Term Funding Program, which was launched Sunday. But now this stampede threatens to evolve into an avalanche. There are more than 4,000 banks in the United States right now, but if our lenders are determined to only protect the biggest institutions, we could ultimately see hundreds of these banks fail. Unless something changes, I cannot recommend keeping more than $250,000 in any small or mid-sized bank. Of course, the vast majority of us do not have to worry about such things, but those that do have lots of money are paying very close attention to what is happening. In fact, on Friday, investors once again pulled lots and lots of money out of banking stocks. Stocks fell Friday as investors pulled back from positions in First Republic and other bank shares amid lingering concerns over the state of the U.S. banking sector. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 384.57 points, or 1.19%, to close at 31,861.98 points. The S&P 500 slid 1.1% to end at 3,916.64 points, while the Nasdaq Composite was down 0.74% to 11,630.51 points. First Republic slid around 33% to end the week down nearly 72%. I had hoped that the banking panic would settle down to a little bit after the emergency measures that were instituted, but now there is a great risk that the panic could escalate significantly. Many are warning that this crisis could eventually grow to be even worse than the last financial crisis. For example, Dave Kranzler believes that what we're facing will be 2008 5 times over, unless the Fed and other big central banks print enough money to monetize the fraud in the banking system. I believe what is starting to unfold will be 2008 5 times, unless 5 times bigger, unless the Fed and other big central banks print enough money to monetize the fraud in the banking systems. That's the word he used, fraud. But if the Fed takes that kind of action, the dollar will likely collapse. It may take bigger blow-ups for the Fed to act, in which case I'm confident that BlackRock, BLC, Citigroup C, and Goldman Sachs GS, among several others, are at risk. You may not have any sympathies for these banks, but a healthy banking system is absolutely critical for our economy as a whole. For a moment, just imagine what our system would look like if nobody could get a mortgage, an auto loan, or a credit card. Relatively few people pay with cash or checks these days, and that's especially true for major purchases. If banks start failing, the flow of credit will start drying up, and we will plunge into a full-blown economic nightmare. So you better hope that our leaders can find a way to prop up our rapidly failing system, because economic conditions are already bad enough. In fact, earlier today we learned that leading economic indicators have now fallen for 11 months in a row. We are already in the midst of a substantial economic downturn, but if banks start collapsing left and right, we will soon find ourselves in an economic horror show. So I don't know what Janet Yellen did, what she just did. I don't know why Janet Yellen did what she just did. This is madness. She just put a target on every single small bank in America, and so now uninsured deposits will likely get pulled out of those banks at a rate that is absolutely breathtaking. This is by Michael Snyder. About the author, he says, my name is Michael, and my brand new book titled End Times is now available on Amazon. In addition to my new book, I've written 6 other books that are available on Amazon, including 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of these books, you help to support the work that I'm doing, and one way that you can really help is by sending copies as gifts to family and friends. Time is short, and I need help getting these warnings into the hands of as many people as possible. I have published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and The Most Important News, and the articles that I publish on those sites are published on dozens of other prominent websites all over the globe. I always freely and happily allow others to republish my articles on their own websites, but I also ask that they include this about the author section with each article. The material contained in this article is for general information purposes only, and readers should consult licensed professionals before making any legal, business, financial, or health decisions. I encourage you to follow me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and any way that you can share these articles with others is definitely great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, I strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. And this is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box